come back together. In your, let's start with the one with the red pebbles in it. And I'm going to write on mine. Okay, so mock rock number one, this is the one with the red. Okay, what sediments were present in the rock with the red pebbles? How about red pebbles?
Green
But that's a green thing.
shells.
Shells, okay.
Cement. Sand.
Sand. Did anybody see anything other than sand, red pebbles, green pebbles, or shells?
Something black. There's something black. To see something else I'm missing? Is that a
I don't
shell?
know.
Oh, okay. So you can break up some more.
Maybe I need my
Are you talking about
There's something black.
observations with the unaided eye?
You can use your smart scope if you want to.
Oh, it is a shell. It's a different type of shell.
Okay, let's move on to the green, or what is it, the blue rocks. Okay, what's in the blue rock?
Just the cement, blue rocks, and green. The blue
Okay,
pebble,
so blue pebbles.
green pebble, the cement, or the sand, salt, whatever you want to call it.
So I've got 4 things listed in my red rock, 3 things listed in my blue rock. Am I missing anything? Does anybody have anything to add to this? What's that?
Dirt,
Okay, so I've got this here. So I've got my red rock that has red pebbles, like aquarium gravel size, green pebbles, shells, and sand. My blue rock, we found blue pebbles, green pebbles, and sand. So were these two rocks, were the parent rocks the same parent rocks? Did the sediments or clasts from these come from the same place? Okay, Pam says that part of them probably did, that the green might have come from the same place. Okay, let's look at that. If you turn your page, we have a map. There's big blue mountains. There's green peaks and red ridges. Here's a shell swimming hole over here. There's a shell pond right there. Here's a shell lake right here.
so they show you the shells.
Using the data collected in this investigation to determine the location on the landscape illustration where the mock sedimentary rocks were deposited. So where do you think the rock with the red gravel in it, with the red pebbled rock, we call that number 1. I'm calling it number 1. Where would that rock probably come from?
The red ridges. Shell pond.
Well, how about this? Let me rephrase myself. Where would that rock have been deposited?
From Red Ridge.
Not the parent, not well, it came from there and there. Where would we find this rock? Where would this rock have been deposited? The rock we identified has red gravel, green gravel, shells, and sand. Where would be a good place for us to choose that we found this rock? Rochelle.
Can you ask a question?
Okay, so we have our map. We're talking about the rock number one, the red, it had red pebbles in it, green pebbles in it, shells and sand. Where do you think we might have found this rock?
Red shells. In the raging river.
Okay. Pam, what do you think?
If it had green, red, and shells, it was probably the shell pond.
Okay.
And if it was blue and green, it was somewhere above the shell lake.
Why do you say, okay, I want to come right back to that, okay?
Okay.
So hold that thought. But the red rock, the red,
Green.
green,
Shell.
shell, and sand. So there's 4 components that had to come from somewhere. Now this rock does not have blue in it. So it's nowhere near the Blue Mountain. If it were near the Blue Mountain, it would have had blue gravel in it, but it didn't. So we know that the red probably came from the red ridges, the green came from the green peaks, and the shells from the shell pond. So it should be right around in here, right? Now Pam, you made a really interesting observation that the other rock that had blue pebbles, green pebbles, but no shells, she said that it came from the Shell Lake area, but between the mountain and Shell Lake. Why did you say that?
Because it had to stop before it got to the shell lake because there were no shells in it.
Okay,
If it had made it to the shell lake, then there would be shells blue in it.
so those clasts, or that sediment, was deposited in here somewhere. It came down the mountains, and so it had to combine with the Big Blue Mountain and the Green Peak that might have been in this area before it got to the lake to pick up the shells. Okay. So then the red rock came from the red ridges, the green peaks, went from the shell pond, so it might have been in this area. So you can tell from the sediments present in the sedimentary rock where it might be located according to the location of the parent rocks. Or you can predict what rocks you would find given certain locations and parent rocks. So if we look at this, we could predict that the sediments coming off of the green peak are green, the sediments coming off of the red ridges are red, and that there are shells in the shell pond. So the sediments around there would contain those things. So over time, they're layered and layered and layered. Lithification occurs, and we have your mock rock. Yes, ma'am.
Kind of irrelevant, but it reminds me of the forensics when they look at bugs on the grill of a car, so they know where they've driven through.
That's great, thank you. Would you tell everybody that was a really good comparison?
That it reminds me of forensic shows where they observe the insects on the grill of the car to know where they've been because they know that that's where insects are found.
So if you drove through an area with certain insects, they would end up on the front of your
Or
car.
even the clay in the tires or something.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Go drive through a cornfield.
Okay,
Everywhere.
so, Roland,
11:40.
it's 11:40. We are going to stop right there then, and we're gonna start tomorrow identifying sedimentary rocks, okay? Woo!
I need the,